Carlo Alexi Nograles, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, National Security Advisor Secretary Hermogenes Esperon Jr., Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. ng Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process, Secretary Allen Capuyan ng National Commission on Indigenous People, at kasama rin po natin virtually si Secretary Menardo Guevara ng Department of Justice. I would like also to welcome our participants from the media. We have more than 30 who registered to participate with us from across the globe. Salamat po sa inyong lahat. So with that, let's get started. I'll turn it over to Secretary Nograles for his opening statement.
Maraming salamat sa iyo, ASEC. Mga kababayan, malapit na po ang State of the Nation address ni Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte. At ito, halos patapos na rin po ang ating Pre-SONA forums. This is the second to the last. Tomorrow will be the last Pre-SONA forum featuring the Climate Change Adaptation, Mitigation, Disaster Risk Reduction Cluster. But for now, we have the principals and members of the Security, Justice, and Peace Cabinet Cluster to answer your questions na hindi po nasagot kanina. Before we ended the formal program. So we're ready to answer your questions at maraming salamat, ASEC.
All right, thank you, CABSEC. This virtual presser is on the record. We have a live streaming on the PCOO and affiliated pages. And before we proceed to the Q&A session, a couple of mechanics for the media to facilitate the Q&A portion.
Your media outlet. 2. Questions sent in advance by the media will be read in order of submission. 3. To ask a question live, you may click the raise hand button or notify me through the Zoom Q&A chat box. I will then call your attention when it's your turn to speak. 4. Please state your name and media outlet before asking your question and say to whom your questions are directed to. 5. To make way for other participants, the media participant may initially ask 2 to 3 questions. You will be allowed to ask more questions later on if time permits. 6. We encourage our media participants to please only limit your questions related to the topic.
All right, now the floor is open for the question and answer session. Our first question will come from Ella Madge of the National Public Radio. Ella?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, hi. This is Ella Mage from National Public Radio. I would like to ask anyone with our secretaries right now, and any of the secretaries right now, with President Duterte ending his term soon, what grade would you give your the current administration, and what would you wish you could have done more in terms of peace and security for the country?
Secretary Esperon?
This puts me on the spot, but I've already been ticking off some criteria, questions to myself, and I would gladly rate the President at 8.7. 87. That's more than the approval rating of the President in the surveys, 8.7. What would I have wished that we could do more? Well, I am into the West Philippine Sea. I'm into the local insurgency as well as local terrorism. It's actually more of wishing to continue more of what we are doing. We have particularly started the Barangay Development Program. It's really something that I had wished for when I was in the active service, that the security sector effort would be complementary or parallel to the efforts of the national government agencies as well as with the private sector. But today, we have gone into more than that. And we came up with the National Task Force to End the Local Communist Armed Conflict, where we have the whole of government with the private sector, so it becomes a whole-of-nation approach to address the root causes that are exploited by the communist terrorist group. This insurgency has burdened us for more than 52 years, and it has shackled and prevented the takeoff of the Philippines in terms of peace and development. Peace, because if you do not have peace, because of the countryside activities of these armed groups, then there's no way that investments will come in. An incident in faraway Zamboanga or Surigao would always be recorded as an incident in the Philippines. And so that affects a lot of things. So what would you want me to wish to do? In particular, this barangay development program, plus the workings of the National Task Force that has now 12 lines of efforts with 17 regional task forces. Many, many things, but the key word here is continuity, and more intensity. We have the programs. We simply have to continue and be more intense. And that's where we are doing right now. We started in 2016. It got more intense. And I think we have the formula. All we need is to continue all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Esperon. Secretary Lorenzana, baka meron po kayong gustong idagdag.
Yes. As far as the Department of Defense is concerned, ang rating ni Presidente siguro 90%. Ano? Dahil naano niya yung nadagdagan niya yung mga equipment ng ating mga sundalo at maganda yung direktiba niya sa amin na puksain yung ating insurgency. Ngayon, siguro, ang dapat pang nating magawa sa kanyang administrasyon ay dagdagan natin yung ating mga naangkat o nabiling mga equipment dahil kailangan pa natin yan, lalong-lalo na yung ating mga barko at mga aeroplano. So, yun lang po ang masasabi ko.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. Ella Mage, meron po ba kayong follow-up question?
Yes, just also for everyone. What is, you think, the best legacy that President Duterte will leave behind, ending his administration?
Kabsek?
Kung iba-iba yung sagot namin pag iba-ibang cluster, no? But for security, justice, and peace cluster, siguro yung legacy na maiwan niya as far as peace and order is concerned, and Secretary Anyo will attest to this, yung nakita ninyo nabawasan yung crime index natin by half. No other administration and no other president was able to do that except this particular president, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. At nararamdaman niya ng mga kababayan natin sa lahat ng areas, all regions, all provinces, all cities and municipalities, naramdaman po talaga nila ang pagbagsak ng crime index. Pagdating naman sa larangan, sa Mindanao naman po, we're very happy and proud to say that the legacy is yung peace in Mindanao. No other president was able to solve the peace and order problem in Mindanao except this particular president. Ngayon po, kung wala lang itong COVID, mas mataas pa sana yung growth and development ng Mindanao. pero tinamaan tayo ng COVID. But ibig sabihin, the formula works. If you give long-lasting peace in Mindanao, you will see a lot of growth and development in areas in Mindanao na hindi gustong pasukan ng mga negosyante, investors, trabaho, negosyo, dahil nga puro bakbakan sa Mindanao noon. Ngayon, it's silence. It's awesome, peaceful, widespread silence in terms of bakbakan sa Mindanao. Wala na yung narinig na yung bakbakan sa una. No? Again, these are long-lasting, this is a long-lasting legacy sana. Kung sabi ni Secretary June, kung magpatuloy. Yung nabitin lamang is yung sa fight against the local armed movement, which, ito na nga, we're seeing a lot of barangays being cleared. Pero kung nakita niyo yung graph kanina, meron pang ilan, no? But just the same, this is the lowest number of barangay affected barangays in the history of siguro post Marcos, no, post EDSA. Ito na yung pinakamababa. Pero meron pa mga barangays that need to be barangays of peace, stability, security. So medyo how many months to go? 11 months to go. Can we do it? We'll try. We'll try our best. But nakasalalay diyan sa next administration, no? We've done the job, the president has done the job, but the challenge now is for the next administration to keep it going, na ipagpatuloy ito. Because we don't want to be set back again. We don't want to go back again to the time na hindi nakiklear yung mga barangays, hindi makapasok ang development, walang progress makapasok dahil takot na sunugin ang mga equipment, takot na lahat. At yung bakbakan sa Mindanao, we cannot afford to go back to that time again. So it really behooves on the next administration to continue the gains. By the way, this was done, it wasn't easy to do this. You really need a very strong-willed president who understands the terrain, na dapat naintindihan niya what is at stake, and dapat meron talagang strong political will para dito.
Thank you, Kabsec. Ella?
That's it for me. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Ella, may idadagdag po si
Sure,
Secretary
sure.
Anyo.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Dagdagan
sir.
ko lang, no? Although when the president was asked about this legacy thing, ang sabi niya, ayoko ng mga legacy. Ayoko malagay yung pangalan ko sa mga poster. Basta ginawa lang niya yung trabaho niya. But of course, we got feedbacks from our people all over the country. Ang isang pinamaganda yung participatory governance because in President Duterte's administration, naging ganap na cluster ang participatory governance. And we give premium to the input of the people through Dagyao town hall meetings, our freedom of information initiative, and our full disclosure policy. Kapag may mga nagagawang project dyan, ang ating mga mamamayan, through 8888, through DevLife apps, pwede mong alamin kung ano yung project na nangyayari, kung mayroon bang na-corrupt dyan, at real-time malalaman mo. And of course, the strong will of the President to curb corruption. I think in this administration, even in the LGU sector, about 340 local chief executives, governors and mayors are meted with sanctions. And about 94 governors and mayors were dismissed from the government service. 16 of them were governors. So makikita natin na talagang we mean good governance and we ensure basic delivery services to the people. And with this so-called legacy, I think we are able to deliver what is due for our people. Yun lang.
Thank you, Secretary Anyo. Ella?
That's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ella Mage of the National Public Radio. From Andreo Calonzo of Bloomberg, how crucial is President Duterte's sustained popularity in passing key measures in the last year of his term? Do you think it will be easier to get bills through Congress because he's still very popular? Has he avoided a lame duck face? I think Kabsek.
Yeah, well, he's still, again, no, if you go by the history of presidents who have come and gone, this is the only president na hanggang ngayon, at this point in time, napakataas ng kanyang rating. Approval, satisfaction, all of the ratings of the president are high. No? So yes, he still holds that much political capital in terms of his popularity, in terms of satisfaction and performance. No? So malakas pa rin at mataas ang tiwala ng ating mga kababayan sa kanya. So that being said, what's at stake? No, so State of the Nation address ni Pangulo, it being his last, siyempre, babagitin niya, we expect that he will mention kung ano pa yung mga priority legislative measures niya for the remainder of his term. But to be realistic about it, obviously, we know na filing na sa October, so it's really a race against time. That being said, meron man tayong Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council or yung LEDAC. And I think in that LEDAC Council, na-identify naman yung mga doables. No? At meron na po tayong pakikipag-ugnayan with the Senate and the House of Representatives on the doables, what can realistically be passed under the term of this President. Kung anong mabibitin, kung hindi maipasa under this term, then again, we hope that the next administration will not just shove this aside, but really consider seriously taking these legislative measures and seeing it to its finality and its signing into law and its implementation. No? Kasi sayang din yung mga naumpisahan na at lahat naman ng mga priority legislation ay nandyan on the record. And hopefully, the next administration can come in and see its passage through.
Thank you, Kabsek. Next question will come from Christine Kudis of the Philippine News Agency. Christine?
Hello.
Go ahead, Christine.
Yes. To Sir Hermogenes Esperon, Sir, what is the measure of success of the NTFL Cup? And if the presidency falls into the power of a candidate that does not come from the PDP Laban party, how will he or she be convinced to continue financing the NTFL Cup?
You know, the problem of the insurgency problem is not the problem of any person. It is the problem of the nation. And it had been with us since 1968, at the least. And so, when you say, what is the possibility of the next president attending to this? They will have to, because it is a national problem. What I can say as the Vice Chairman is that I find the elements of the solution already in the National Task Force. All of government and the private sector that are needed and the local community are involved. And we work in terms of coordinated and harmonized clusters, 12 of them, including basic services, infrastructure and resource management, local government empowerment, local peace engagements, international engagements, and 7 others. Nandyan na lahat. Nandyan na lahat. And we now see it working as the regional task force do it. We have 1 cabinet officer per region. Region 13, si Secretary Carlo. Region BARM, si Secretary Lorenzana. Region 4A, si Secretary Region 3, si Secretary Galvez. Ako sa Region 1. And we have all the regions. Secretary Bello, Region 2. Region Cordillera, Secretary Dar, and all the rest. Nakalatag lahat yan. We are not saying that we can be the only occupants of those positions. It could be occupied by future cabinet members or alam mo kasi sa region kasama namin yung Regional Peace and Order Council and the Regional Development Council combined. So nandyan na lahat. As a former Army Commander and Chief of Staff, I did not enjoy that. I had to do it sa security sector, kami ng PNP and our lawyers and all those in the security sector, halos kami lang. Kaya ngayon, yung armed forces, they can now concentrate on their core competence. At nakikita rin ng mga ibang agency kung ano yung kailangang itulong nila. So, palagay ko, bigyan man ng ibang pangalan nito, the idea itself that has been formulated, or the plan itself, the National Action Plan, must be continued. Otherwise, you will lose the coordination, the harmonization, and the oneness of the whole effort. Ang pinakamaganda rito, simulat sa poll, ang sinabi na ng Pangulo, ang tatak ng National Task Force, dahil siya naman ang chairman, nagboluntaryo na chairman. Ito ang tatak na gusto ko. 2 words, good governance. Good governance. Ngayon, kung may susunod na presidente, ayaw ba niya ng good governance? Ayaw ba na niya ng coordination, harmonization? So, yun ang sinasabi kong continuity. Dapat may continuity. And we know it's working well. Talagang nagigiba-giba na yung mga guerrilla fronts nila. Marami na nagsusurrender. And we are looking into the problems on agrarian problems, social problems, not at the macro level, but dun sa barangay. We are looking at the indigenous people's problem. Did you know that we have about 20 million indigenous peoples now? Noon napabayaan yan Ito ngayon, si Secretary Kapuyan. Kasama ko, Executive Director ng National Task Force. So, nabibigyan ng pansin. Alam mo ba na yung NPA sa Mindanao ay 75% indigenous peoples ang pinanggalingan? Ngayon, nabawi na natin. So, I don't see a reason why this could be discontinued. It may come in another name, but the process, the systems, will stay and maybe even more reinforced.
Thank you,
Can I
Secretary.
add, sir?
Secretary Kapuyan.
I think never in the history of our country that there is a president that put his name on the line to lead the National Task Force. And the most significant thing that happened here is na create yung culture of unification of all agencies under the framework of good governance, utilizing the whole of nation approach in reaching out communities. So, ang nangyari ngayon sa NTF-ELCAC is a kind of culture of coordination, collaboration, synchronization, na ang mga directors, mga USIC, mga ASIC, ay nag-usap-usap every time there are important issues, technically from Monday to Sunday. Ganon ka-deliberate ang effort na hindi lang nanggagaling sa taas, kundi ginagawa na ito sa regional level at saka sa baba. Kahit ang problema sa pinakababa, you can call anytime agencies of government to tackle right away the issue. So I think the culture was created for good governance. And for any incoming presidents, tama si Secretary Esperon, nobody wanted to lose this opportunity. In fact, ang maghahanap nito ngayon are not just the people, kundi ang maghahanap nito yung mga government agency workers sa municipal, city, provincial. Hanapin nila itong nangyayari ngayon na kultura na pag-usap-usap at pag-iisa para tugunan ang problema ng mga ibang sektor ng ating sosyedad. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Allen Kapuyan. Christine, any question? Christine?
Hello. Yes. How about, thank you, Sir Esperon and Sir Kapuyan. Being specific, despite the efforts of the NTF-ELCAC to drive awareness among the youth to be aware of the dangers of rebellion or joining the armed rebellion, we can still see a few of them or the young people being vocal against the thrust of the NTF-ELCAC. And what is your message for them?
Paki-audit lang sa youth ba?
Yes, sir.
Apo. What's your message for the youth, for the young people who
alam mo,
remain-
dito sa grupo namin, in one way or another, naging aktivista kami sa panahon namin. Kaya naranasan din namin na magiging bata. At kami ay nagkaroon din siguro ng idealism, mga pangarap sa buhay, mga pangarap sa bansa. Masasabi ko lang, dahil lang galing ako sa, mahirap sabihin yung eskwelahan namin ni Secretary Carlo dyan sa Agham Road, na marami kaming mayroong mga nasa Central Committee. Pero ako, ay napunta sa kataas-taasan ng military. Gusto kong bigyan ng parangal yung paniwala nila na noong bata sila. Dahil pareho kami. Pero yung ending, makikita mo kung anong pagkakaiba. Dahil yung mga kasama kong kaklasiko na sumama ay namatay sa gulang na 20, 21, or 23 years old bilang kombatant ng NPA. Samantalang sila yung tinitingal ako. Best friend ko pa nga yung isa eh. So ano mas maganda? Yung namatay ka ng 21 years na high in idealism or yung may idealism ka pero nakapagsilbi ka ng todo-todo sa gobyerno bilang sundalo. Kinakarangal din naman natin ang pagiging sundalo, di ba? Lalo na ngayon. Very proud kaming mga naging sundalo at yung mga sundalo ngayon. At dahil meron din naman kaming naibigay na serbisyo na talagang nakapaglingkod o para sa kabutihan ng tao. So, we don't mind. Talaga namang normal yung may papasok sa'yo na mga idea. At you could be an activist. But activism, it being not prohibited, must have its limits. Ibig sabihin, isipin natin kung ano yung kinabukasan mo, kung ano talaga yung ipinaglalaban mo. Tulad nan, ang pinaglalaban ba natin ay idealism o magandang kinabukasan ng Pilipinas kung ikaw ay napasapi sa CPP, NPA, NDF? O ang pinaglalaban mo ay upang si Joma Sison at ang kanilang mga katoto, mga katropa, ay maging mga leader ng bansang ito. Sa ilalim ng ibang pamamaraan na hindi demokratiko na katulad ngayon. Yun ba ang pangarap mo? Kaya tanong-tanongin natin dahil I'm sure ang mga kabataan ngayon napakagaling eh. Meron din naman akong dalawang bata pa na anak na nasa kolehiyo pa, naririnig nila ang mga usap-usapin na ganyan. Pero napag-uusapan naman sa bahay. At palagay ko, we agree and I listen to them na ang dapat ay hindi ka dapat mapasama dyan sa mga recruitment ng mga front organizations. Mayroong paraan para magsilbi sa ating mga kababayan, sa ating bansa.
Thank you, Secretary
Pwede
Esperon.
magdagdag.
Secretary Kapuyan.
Hindi porke maraming mga kabataan nagsalita, yun na yung pag-rate natin ng capacity ng CPP and PNDF. Tandaan natin yung kanilang propaganda machinery has been here for more than 50 years. But these young people are just mouthpiece. Hindi sila pwede magsalita kung hindi ito party line. Ganon ang indoctrination na nakuha sa kanila. Pag nagsasalita sila, it is a party line dictated by the Communist Party. Pero anong katotohanan? They're speaking widespread, but these are lies. Ang daming kasinungalingan, ang daming namamatay na kabataan. Yung kanilang panluluko sa taong bayan tungkol sa Buckwheat School, yung mga lumad school, napakalaking kasalanan ang ginawa ng CPP and PNDF dyan. At marami tayong witness, ebidensya, kahon-kahon, para magpatutuo sa katotohanan. But that's the problem. The CTGs are prepared to always tell a lie. Because ang bottom line nila is lies and deception as a food for the revolutionaries. Para yung ibang kasama nila, yun ang pagkain na tuloy-tuloy silang ma-radicalize ang pag-iisip. And it is also intended to influence public opinion. At yun ang binangga ngayon ng ating local government empowerment, na sa mga kabayanan ay nagkaroon na ng pag-unawa ang mga kabataan. Ako as chairperson of NCIP, kitang-kita ko kung paano nila ginamit ang kabataan na sasabihin lang sa magulang, dyan lang kami sa Harandabaw, pero dadalhin nila sa UP Diliman, sa University of San Carlos. You can hear lots of testimonies. Hindi sila nag-aaral, mas marami silang panahon na magsusulit ng pondo, magrarally at magsalita sa school ng mga bagay-bagay na inutos sa kanila ng mga party cadre. At yung iba dyan gusto nang umuwi, napipigilan. So, ma'am, it's not a gauge na porque maraming mga kabataan na nagsasalita against government, that is an indicator na it is an indicator that there is still a problem. But it doesn't mean to say that the programs of NTF-ELCAC is failing. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Kapuyan. Christine? Christine Cudis of PNA. Next question will come from Ron Lopez of Agence France Press.
Hi, JV, Secretaries, thank you. My question is for Secretary Lorenzana and Secretary Esperon, and this has been asked a while ago, but I wanted to be more specific. With 1 year left for the administration, what would you say is the biggest thing that will be remembered with the Duterte administration in protecting the Philippines' territory and sovereignty, especially on the country's territorial dispute with China, considering that under this administration, just this year, we've seen hundreds of Chinese ships sailing in the disputed territories in the Spratlys, and there were also reports of fishermen being blocked by Chinese ships. Thank you.
The Secretary of Defense would like me to speak first as the chairman of the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea. Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. Although alam naman natin na ang ating panaligan dyan sa West Philippine Sea ay ating mga tropa, especially the Philippine Navy, Philippine Air Force, and the Marines and Army. Alam mo, kung titignan natin ang West Philippine Sea, bago ka gumawa ng aksyon dyan, kailangan pag-aralan mo. Kailangan pag-aralan mo mabuti. Hindi yung sasabihin mo na, amin ito, atin ito, at hindi mo pinapansin kung ano pa yung mga nandyang iba. Meaning, is it only us that are in the South China Sea or in the West Philippine Sea? While we appreciate that the fact that we have been awarded by the arbitral tribunal of victory in our submissions, is that something that is enforceable or that we could immediately enjoy? Remember that we also have other claims, like the Kalayaan Island Group that created the municipality of Kalayaan. And we have our entitlements under the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Seas. Remember also that Vietnam and China had been there for some time, especially Vietnam. They now hold 21 stations within our EEZ and within DKIG. Even Malaysia has 5 stations, one with an airport. Even Brunei is close by. And so some people would like to project that since we have the 200 nautical miles EEZ, that is all ours. That's not the way to do it. You have to know that within our EEZ are 17 Vietnamese positions. And 5 out of 7 Chinese positions. Positions. They have been there. They are there. That's the reality of it. Therefore, in handling the situation, you have to be very objective about it. What do you want? Confrontation? Is your relation with Vietnam and China all about the South China Sea? Does our relation with China start and end with the South China Sea? Or we have other aspects of our relations with them, like cultural, economic, defense, tourism, financial, etc. And so the President's move to have an independent foreign policy, as called for in the Constitution, is just right. While certainly we treasure old alliances, we must now think and input into work what is reality. Whom do we trade with? Whom do we interact with? Are we about to make a choice? Or we are supposed to just taking care of our national interests? I think that is the mark of the President. It's his upholding of the national interest. Kung ano ang mabuti sa Pilipino, kung ano ang mabuti sa Pilipinas, yun ang kanyang ginagawa. Ganon kasimple yun. It is not because of alignments, but it is because it is for the Filipino people, it is for the Philippines.
Thank you, Secretary Esperon. Secretary Lorenzana.
Yeah. Bumalik tayo doon sa before the assumption of President Duterte, 2016. Noong panahon na yon ay hindi makapangisda yung ating mga mangingisda dyan sa Scarborough at saka yung ibang lugar dyan. Pagkatapos ng pumasok si Presidente, naging Presidente siya, at nakipag-ugnayan at nakipagkaibigan kay Xi Jinping, ay President Xi Jinping, ay lumuwag yung ating ang pagpasok ng ating mga mangingisda sa lugar niyan. Hanggang ngayon ay sa lahat ng iisip natin, sa lahat ng lugar, ay nakakapunta yung ating mga mangingisda. Tama yung sabi ni Secretary Esperon, hindi lang naman yung West Philippines ang ating batayan ng ating relasyon sa China, kundi marami pa. Trade, education, social, and everything. Napakalit lang yung West Philippine Sea. At ngayon, nang dahil sa ginawa ni President Duterte, nung siya pumasok, na sinabi niya, we are friends of everyone and enemy of no one. Wala tayong kalaban, pakikipagkaibigan yan. Hindi tayo mga mamimili ng kaibigan, basta nakakatulong sa atin. And they can support our national interest. So ngayon, ang ating mga ginagawa dito sa West Philippine Sea, ay nakakapagpatrolya yung ating mga naval ships, mga barko ng Navy, Coast Guard, at saka yung BIFAR, Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. At tayo naman ngayon ay nakakapagpatuloy ng ating pag-improve ng ating facilities sa Pag-asa Island, saka iba-iba pang mga mga isla na sakop natin, nasa posisyon natin. Meron tayong siyam na isla dyan sa South China Sea na okupado natin. Yun ang ating ini-improve ngayon, ang facilities doon para sa ating mga sundalo. So, ganoon, yan ang magandang legacy na nagawa ni President Duterte ay makipag-ugnayan at para matahimik ang sitwasyon dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. Ron, any question?
Thank you, Secretaries. Another question, still on the issue of security and military alliance that you mentioned. What is the status, Secretary Lorenzana, of the visiting forces agreement? And can you also tell us about the incoming visit of U.S. Defense Secretary Austin Lloyd to the Philippines next week? Are we expecting the VFA to be signed there, or perhaps Secretary Austin meeting President Duterte? Thank you.
Una-una, yung BFA naman ay hindi binabago ang dokumento na. The document will not be changed, but there will be some addendum side agreement to implement the VFA. Ngayon, yung dokumento na yan na ginawa ng BFA Commission ay nandoon sa Malacanang at pinag-aralan pa ng Office of the President. Yun sa BFA. So, yun namang pagdalaw ni Secretary Lloyd Austin sa 29-30 ay inaasahan ko, wala pa kaming mga agenda, pinag-uusapan pa ng mga staff namin yung agenda. Inaasahan ko na pag-uusapan namin ay, of course, yung BFA, yung Mutual Defense Treaty, yung ating relationship dito, yung bilateral relationship with the US, at pangapat ay yung West Philippine Sea or yung South China Sea. So yung apat na yun ang topic na pag-uusapan ang inaasahan ko. So that's it. So first, the BFA will not be changed. It will be just, there is a side agreement to implement the provisions of the BFA, and once it is signed by the President, then that will be an official document that is attached to the BFA. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. Ron Lopez.
That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Secretary.
you, Ron Lopez of the Agence France Presse. For Secretary Galvez from Jen Galvez of the Vanguard Radio Network. Question number 1, Secretary Galvez. Have you already discussed the preliminary details as to how the Philippines will be affected with the passing of the U.S. bill called the Eagle Act? How will the Philippines directly and immediately benefit from this?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the Eagle Act.
Okay, thank you, sir. Question number 2. China was recently accused by the United States and other Western countries, including for the first time NATO, as the country who tried or responsible for the recent Microsoft hacking. Do you support or are you inclined in supporting this investigative finding, as well as considering that our foreign policy is tilted towards China? Secretary Esperon,
Let me just get into that, being co-chairman of the National Cybersecurity Interagency Committee. First, we don't have a copy of that report. And so we cannot react on specific matters about that. Second, we know that hacking or the disturbance or delay of services of our internet systems is a common occurrence because of the presence of some hackers, as I must say. So what we must tell you is, because we don't know that report, we do not know if that is indeed the undertaking of a specific country. If they have it, then we are ready to go over it also. We do not have to act on it because after all, we have our own national cybersecurity efforts, not only in the civilian offices, but also with the armed forces of the Philippines, which has a cyber command. So we will await for that. We are aware of such things that are happening, but until we are able to read and study the report, we are not ready to attribute that or blame that to anybody. It could be persons, it could be state-sponsored, but we would like to withhold any statement on that until we are able to study that report.
Thank you, Secretary Galvez. Next question will come from Jerome Morales of Reuters. Jerome?
Hello, yes. Good afternoon to our cabinet officials and to all our guests. Thank you for this event, for this press conference and this forum. I just like to have two questions for Secretary Lorenzana and Secretary Esperon. In terms of defense, particularly defense relations with our neighbors, with our other countries, what key security activities would you like the next admin to continue? And second one, still on the defense relations, what big work will the next admin have to work on that you were not able to achieve, to complete, or to start for this year? Thank you so much.
We have several or a lot of a couple or a number of defense relationship with our neighbors, with Malaysia and Indonesia. Meron tayong trilateral cooperative arrangements. Ito yung mga nagpapatrolya dyan, both Navy at saka Air Force, dyan sa border natin para maiwasan ng paglipat ng mga terorista from one country to another. Meron din tayong BFA with Australia at meron din tayong arrangement to exchange students with Japan. In fact, we have also a defense relationship with China in terms of exchange of personnel para mag-aral dito, mag-aral ng mga tao natin. And also the procurement of some equipment, of military equipment from China. Ngayon, ang pinakamalaki nating relationship is with the United States dahil meron tayong Mutual Defense Treaty at saka meron pa tayong existing na Visiting Forces Agreement. So, pinakamalaking engagement natin ay sa United States dahil taon-taon meron tayong exercise sa balikatan na dinadayo tayo ng Amerika at makipag-exercise dito sa ating armed forces. Now, ano pa ang pwede nating magawa sa susunod na administrasyon ay paigtingin lang natin ang ating relationship with the neighbors para sa ganon ay meron tayong cooperation dahil yung military alliances and relationship ay hindi lang naman sa preparing for war, kundi more importantly ay nagtutulungan tayo sa disaster response and pagka may calamities, nagtutulungan tayo pagka may mga pumuputok na may typhoons, kung maalala niyo nung pumutok yung Mayon ay nagtumulong din sa atin ng ASEAN ng yung kanilang militar nagpunta dito. In fact, during the Marawi siege, ay dumating dito yung mga tulong din ng armed forces ng Singapore, Malaysia at Indonesia. So, marami tayong mga dapat gawin pa para mapaigting natin ang ating relationship with our neighboring countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. Jerome, any question?
Yes, again on the VFA.
I'm sorry.
Are
Jerome,
go ahead.
si Secretary Esperon may idadagdag po.
Go ahead, Secretary.
Magdadagdag na lang ako doon sa sinabi ni Secretary Lorenzana. He is very much on top of defense and military matters. But as former Chief of Staff, may dalawa pala akong kasama din dito at kami naman, halos military kami dito. Si Secretary Noglares naman ay colonel yan. Dadagdagan ko lang yung sinabi ni Secretary Lorenzana, and this is a concern for many of us. Our defense spending level now is about 0.9 or up to 1% of the GDP. Alam mo, napakababa nun. Some countries in our region spend up to 2% of their GDP. I am not saying this na itaas natin ang ating defense spending level because I would want to go to war with anybody, neighboring country, a third country. I just simply want to do this because there are minimum defense capabilities that you have to achieve. But then again, I think it will help us so much if we have better equipment, better training, because we have internal security problems. One of which is the local terrorist group that are affiliated with the ISIS or foreign terrorist groups, as we have seen in the Marawi siege. And of course, we have, this is still, alam mo, dito sa Pilipinas, mayroong namamayagpag dito na party, Communist Party of the Philippines, na sinasabi niyang legal sila dahil sa ibang bansa ay legal naman ang Communist Party. Tama yon, legal sa ibang bansa because they are not pursuing armed rebellion or terrorism. Eh dito iba meron silang armadong grupo, yung New People's Army. Kaya sila ay designated na terrorist at malapit na silang maging, they will soon be proscribed as terrorist. Yun ang pagkakaiba. Yun ang pagkakaiba. Kaya yung ating defense capability ay kinakailangan nating iangat dahil kailangan sugpuin na natin itong mga armadong grupong ito, terrorism, local terrorist, and the communist terrorist. Additionally, we need all those equipment to patrol our maritime domain. Kailangan natin ng barko, eroplano, para nakikita natin kung ano nangyayari doon sa ating isla, sa Pag-asa Island, sa Lawak, sa Parola, at yung siyam na ating station dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Hindi naman po pwedeng pupunta tayo doon ng hindi man lang makatagal. Mabuti na lang matatapang yung ating mga tropa. Ha? Maski na kuminsan 10 lang sila sa isang isla, hindi aatras yan. Maski na 25 lang ang laman ng BRP Cabra, i-challenge niya yung kahit na mas malaking barko na military pa dahil alam niyang nandito tayo. Pero hindi ba mas mabuti kung bigyan natin sila ng vessel and equipment, advanced equipment, para lalo nating madepensahan ang ating territory and maritime domain. At para mapabilis na rin ang pag-solve nitong insurgency at saka local terrorists. Plus, remember na itong bansa natin ay laging tinatamaan ng disaster. Bagyo, Bulkang Taal, Bulkang Pinatubo, etc. Sino nakikita nyo sa front lines? Di ba? Local government na kasama ng military, police, security forces. Doon din natin magagamit yung tropa natin. Double purpose, multiple purpose tayo eh. So, 0.9%, napakababa masyado. Tayo yung bansa na gustong lumaban, pero ayaw naman natin gumastos. Tayo yung bansang gusto nating mapabilis ang reaction natin pag may disaster, ayaw naman natin gumastos. Di ba? So, yun lang. Medyo magastos, pero may katuturan naman itong gastusin na ito. Hindi naman ito pagbili lang, kundi kung saan pupunta, saan gagamitin yung mga equipment na yan. And I'm glad that Secretary Lorenzana has seen to it that the Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 of the AFP modernization, ganon din sa kabila, sa PNP, DILG, ay meron silang sinusunod na capability build-up or modernization.
Thank you, Secretary Esperon. Jerome?
Yes, one more quick question. Are we confident that we will sign a revised VFA under the term of President Duterte? And I remember the Mutual Defense Treaty was under review since 2018. What has happened to this review? What's our conclusion? What should be done after this review? Thank you so much.
Yung BFA, sabi ko kanina, hindi naman natin binabago eh. Meron lang tayong ginagawang dagdag na dokumento to implement yung provision. Ako'y nagtitiwala naman, I'm confident that this will be signed during the term of President Duterte. Kaya lang, nakabinbin pa yung termination letter dyan hanggang December. So, tingnan natin kung ano ang mangyayari, kung i-extend pa ng Presidente o itutuloy niya ng i-abrogate yung Visiting Forces Agreement. Yung MDT naman, kung maalala ninyo noong 2017, ay sinabi kong kailangan i-review natin yan. So, sa kasalukuyan, yung mga staff ko at saka staff din ng US ay nag-uusap kung ano pa ang pwede natin gawin para ma-revise natin so that we can revise the document that is relevant to our times. Dahil kung matandaan ninyo, yung MDT ay pinirmahan noong 1953 noong kasagsagan pa ng Cold War, noong ang communist movement dito sa Southeast Asia ay malakas. So iba na ang sitwasyon ngayon. So dapat siguro tingnan natin, yun ang rason kung bakit gusto kong tingnan ulit yung i-revisit nga yung MDT. At siguro gumawa tayo ng hakbang, both sides, the US and the Philippines, to do something to make the document more relevant to the current times. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. Thank you, Jerome Morales of Reuters. Next question will come from Lip Wang of Guangming Daily China, to be followed by David Santos of CNN Philippines. Lip Wang?
Hi, good afternoon, ASEC JB. Good afternoon, everyone. My question is to Secretary Lorenzana. Sir, how will you comment the defense cooperation with China during Duterte's term? And do you think it is on the right way to improve the bilateral relations, especially on dealing with the sea disputes? Thank you, sir.
Defense cooperation daw. Defense
Lip Wang, can you please repeat the question?
Okay. So how will you comment the defense cooperation with China during Duterte's term? And do you think it is on the right way to improve the bilateral relations, especially dealing with the sea disputes? Thank you.
Yeah, the defense relationship between China and the Philippines during the time of President Duterte is very good. It was only the President Duterte who opened the Philippines to have a very amicable talks with the Chinese government. But the relationship, the documents that covers the relationship between China and the Philippines was signed a long way back, I think in 2012, that there is agreement for the defense departments of the defense sector of the two countries to keep talking, exchange of ideas, exchange of students and everything. And this has not been done before, but during the time of President Duterte, it has gone up. The level of relationship has gone up. In fact, one of the proof that this relationship has gone up was when the Chinese government donated several hundred firearms during the fight against the terrorists in Marawi, plus several millions of ammunition. And it has also donated vehicles to be used by our engineering units. So all in all, the tempo or the the intensity of our relationship with China during the time of this president has increased, and it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. Lipwang, thank you. Lipwang of Guangming Daily China, thank you so much. Next, David Santos of CNN Philippines. David?
Hi, good afternoon, sirs. We take full note of the accomplishments, sirs, ng defense and the security sectors for the past 5 years nitong current administration. But rather, we would like to ask a question about the current developments with regards to territorial defense to Secretary Lorenzana and Secretary Esperon. What do we make of reports that fishermen in Pangasinan who were supposedly barred from fishing in Scarborough Shoal by the Chinese Coast Guard had supposedly recently recovered what appears to be oil exploration device with Chinese markings. These are now seen as a potential proof of China conducting scientific research in our country's EEZ. And what reports are you getting about this particular incident? Also, a clarification from Secretary Lorenzana when he was asked by the President during Monday's Talk to the Nation, nung tinanong po kayo ni Presidente, bakit mas madali nang napapaalis ngayon yung mga Chinese vessels? Ang sabi niyo po, one of the possible reasons kasi kusa silang umaalis kasi napakalapit na nila sa Palawan. Ano pong ibig sabihin nito, Mr. Secretary? Thank you po.
Meaning that they know that they're already encroaching on our territorial waters. Malapit na sa masado sila eh. So, as far as they're concerned, dapat wala sila doon, so umalis sila. Pangalawa, sabi ko kay Presidente ay the Chinese Navy, because mga Navy ships ito eh, do not want to have an engagement with a civilian ship, which is our Coast Guard. Yun ang ano niyan. So, tungkol naman doon sa report ng mga fishermen, mangingisda na pinipigilan ng China sa Scarborough Shoal, natanggap din namin ang report na yan, and we are verifying na kung totoo yan ay hindi maganda sa relationship natin ng China. We have to protest and we have to insist that the Scarborough Shoal, Scarborough area, Panatag area, is the traditional fishing ground of Filipinos. Now, tungkol naman doon sa mga exploration equipment na nakuha, nakita ko kanina yung picture niyan, pula, ay hindi pa natin alam kung para saan yon dahil nakuha yon ng mga mangingisda at dinala ito sa DOST para tingnan talaga kung anong para saan yung mga equipment na yan. Until then, we cannot conclude what they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. David?
Just a question to Secretary Esperon naman. Secretary Esperon, you did talk about yung regarding sa cyber firm report, no? Nung accusing certain, well, we'll be specific about China conducting cyber espionage, accusing China of cyber espionage. Although you pointed out na di pa ho kayo nakakuha ng kopya ng report, and as much as possible, you don't want to put blame on anyone, whether ito ay personal or state-sponsored. But Opposition Senator Risa Ontiveros recently came up with a statement cautioning on what she says the Chinese government's attempt to heavily influence the 2022 elections through cyber espionage campaigns against the Philippines. She also further implied that China may interfere in the elections to help win the candidate that will serve their or China's interests. Your comment po dito.
I have not heard this statement of the Honorable Senator Risa Ontiveros. But you know, when statements like this come out from a politician, I do not know if she is talking as a politician or somebody who is a technical expert on these matters. And so I hope it's not all about politics. Just imagine immediately concluding that, I don't know if she has concluded that China will aid the party of the president in the elections. That is something that sounds familiar to me as I look at the elections of other countries. So it could be very political. But, I'd like to go into the technical aspect of it. Because with due respect, really, cybersecurity is a problem. In fact, in the United States, that has already gone up to be one of the top 2 problems, cybersecurity. So dapat ganon din tayo dito. Ganon din tayo dito. Kaya salamat sa pagpapaalala, kung yun ay pagpapaalala galing kay Senator Hontiveros. Pero kung yan ay salita ng isang namumulitika o isang technical expert, ay hindi ko pa sigurado. Kaya doon na lang ako magpasalamat sa angle na yon, na baka nagpapaalala lang siya. So salamat sa ating Senator Hontiveros.
Thank you, Secretary Esperon. David?
Quickly lang, Senator Esperon, to be clear about it, wala naman siyang sinabi na she's referring to the current administration. She was just saying in general na mga candidates for next year na pwedeng mag-benefit from the acts of China. Also, she cited that report from Kaspersky. I think the same report that you're referring earlier. Yun lang po. Salamat po.
Yeah, but certainly, David, we take cue from all those statements. Magandang pakinggan din natin yan dahil baka nagpapaalala siya. Let us, that should also alert COMELEC, our electoral systems, other things. Kaya lang, medyo malaking halong politika kasi dyan eh. Hindi ako masyadong sanay dyan. So I'd like to look at the technical matters of it. Salamat sa paalala.
Thank you, Secretary Esperon. Thank you, David Santos of CNN Philippines. Question from Jen Galvez of Vanguard Radio Network for Secretary Galvez. What is his reaction or your reaction to the delayed arrival of Covaxin from India through Go Negosyo? The supposed arrival was early this year, but until now, 9 from the Indian Pharma and Go Negosyo can guarantee the exact arrival when companies have already been complaining and with the increasing threat of the Delta variant. What can you do to expedite this matter?
Tignan muna natin sa angle ng technical, no, dahil kasi nakita natin yung ng AstraZeneca last year natin na-assignan yon, dumating yun kaya nilang darating. And let's see also na yung India ay talagang harping pa talaga sa ating variant. I believe, nakikita ko dito, let's be prudent. Dahil kasi nakita natin, Covaxin is $18. And nakita natin sa Brazil, mayroong ngayong ongoing investigation pertaining the certain politicians who have garnered some profits from this. So yung mga ganitong mga issues, kailangan tingnan natin mabuti. And based on sa aking sa mga expert, I think instead of getting Covaxin, you have to get some other vaccines who have been proven in other countries. Like for example, Pfizer. Kaya Pfizer ang kinuha natin 40 million because the price of Pfizer is much less, twice the price ng . So if you'll get one Covaxin, you will get 2 Pfizer. So bakit ka kukuha ng Covaxin na hindi siya masyadong proven sa Ang gumagamit lang niyan is India. Okay. So ilang ang ko sa mga ating mga private sector. Huwag kayo padalos-dalos na pipirma ng And also nakita natin, I would like to warn the local government agencies dahil kasi may report na yung Covaxin at saka yung Biotech naniningil kahit wala pang tripartite agreement. So be careful on that.
Thank you, sir. At mamaya may darating na Pfizer, di ba, Secretary?
Sa ngayon may darating na Pfizer, ilang first delivery natin na they promised ang delivery is after 8 weeks. At nakita po natin ngayon, nakita natin na yung Pfizer ay nagkaroon ng early delivery. And we really thank Pfizer because this is one of the best and also decisive contract that we had. Considering na yung kahit na wala pa sana sa July, silang magbigay ng tinatawag natin na na early deliveries, nagbigay na sila ng 1.3 million until August 3. So, mamaya, kukunin po namin yung first delivery. And also, they will have another delivery on the 26th and another delivery on the August 3. So, inuulit ko po na talagang, if you choose yung mga different vaccine, 7 na yung vaccine natin sa ngayon, pangalo yung COVAX. At napakalaki ng mga prospects ng ating mga nakukuhang vaccine ngayon. In fact, I was informed by Gavi that we will be receiving 3 million Moderna vaccines this coming July to be donated by the US and COVAX cost-sharing. So yun po, kaya po pinapaalala ko po sa inyo, lalo na po sa ating mga local government units at mga private sector, na huwag po tayong padalos-dalos pagbili ng mga vaccine. Dahil kasi nakita po natin, tingnan po natin ang global situation ng ating mga tinatawag na vaccine manufacturer.
Clarify lang natin, sir, the one arriving tonight or later ay procured by the government.
Yes, this is the first delivery. Supposed to be ang delivery ng Pfizer is sa August pa.
Okay.
But because they saw the situation na kailangan po natin, tumulong din po ang tinatawag natin ang ating mga partners at saka yung US Embassy, tumulong din po sa atin para magkaroon po ng delivery. At saka gusto ko po na susugan po yung tinatawag natin yung benefits ng independent foreign policy ni Presidente. Actually, ang naging beneficiary po natin is yung ating procurement ng vaccine. Kung titingnan po natin, dahil sa kanyang napakagandang diplomatic relations with other countries, nakita po natin na more than 12 million vaccines ang nakuha po natin through donations and COVAX. Nakita po natin ngayon, ang daming nagbibigay po sa atin. And even yung UK, they will also give us 415,000 of AstraZeneca. And I believe meron din kaming ongoing sa ibang countries dito sa Middle East and Saudi Arabia na they will also donate. So we really thank the President for his diplomatic relations with countries na talaga nakita niya na we are friend to everybody and enemy to none.
Thank you, Secretary Galvez. Second to the last question na po, from June Cañete of Techcast Media of Hong Kong. The recent war game between the United States and its partners in the Asia-Pacific area appears to be intensifying. With the Philippines' formal defense treaty with the U.S., what is the most likely outcome if a conflict in the disputed territory erupts and the U.S. invokes the defense treaty with the Philippines? Will it be an automatic political trigger that causes the U.S. to engage in what they term the responsibility to defend their partner, and will the Philippines respond accordingly? Secretary Lorenzana.
The MDT, there is a provision in the MDT that an attack on another is considered as attack on the other side. So it will, the other country will come to the aid of the other country. But even if there is an intensifying exercises between the U.S. and its allies in the region, ay hindi naman ako naniniwalang ito ay paghahanda para sa isang gera rito sa South China Sea. Kasi both countries, both superpowers, the U.S. and China, has come out publicly that they do not want any conflict there in South China Sea. For one simple reason, that that is a major trade route of ships coming from all over the world coming to China. And according to the World Bank, I think it's about more than 6 trillion worth of goods passes that place, that sea, South China Sea, every year. So hindi ako naniniwalang magkakaroon ng manggera dyan. And however, we will abide by the MDT dahil treaty yun ng bansa natin with the US. But I'm sure that any incident there that will require the invocation of the MDT will go through the process here in our legislature, our government, before we will participate in any conflict in the South China Sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana. Secretary Galvez, may pahabol pong katanungan si Ella Mage of the National Public Radio. What can we expect on the government's COVID response next year? Are vaccines still on schedule? And is our herd immunity target on place?
Sa nakita natin ngayon, maganda ang mga figures na pinapakita natin in terms of yung supplies and delivery. We are very confident that we will be on track. First, unang-una, we were able to seal 164 million delivery from our procurement, COVAX, and also from the donation. That's one primary factor that we have the steady supply. Second, we have the figures that the capacity of the LGUs can have 500,000 to 700,000. Nakita natin na despite the delay of some of the deliveries, we were able to bridge almost 400,000 a day. Third, nakikita natin ang ganda ng samahan ng private sector, the LGU and the national government. Yung tinatawag natin yung trinity of collaborations between the different sectors. Nakita natin it will gain much ground in order to get yung mga figures at saka mga thresholds wherein we can achieve yung herd immunity by the end of the year. Yung procurement natin, nakita natin ngayon na 164 million ang ating makukuha within 6 months time. And we are still negotiating for 26 billion for our transition for 2022. We are now also venturing on the possibility of we will include in our procurement the transition that we will not have any zero quarter. Nakita natin nung nangyari sa atin nung February, March, at saka nung January, we are zero on the first quarter. And we don't want that to happen to our next year program. So ang programa ng ating Pangulo ay magkaroon ng tinatawag na continuous annual program on vaccination so that we can vaccinate all Filipinos because he believes that we are not safe if not everybody is safe. So ang ating programa ay tuloy-tuloy at meron tayong transition sa immunization from 2021 to 2022. We might have an early immunization by end of 2021.
Thank you, Secretary Galvez. Last question will come from Tokyo, Japan, from Roy Shiroma of Pilipinas Shimbun. Royce, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ASEC, and good afternoon to our honorable secretaries. I have two questions. With the current condition of peace and order, both national and regional, how does it affect or affecting our foreign investments? And number two, how would you equate the Duterte legacy in terms of national security and economic development to the past administrations? And what can we expect if the next president will be a candidate from this administration?
Kabsek, baka ikaw ang pinaka...
Ganito yan, very clear under this administration ang paniniwala that peace and development go hand in hand. One cannot happen without the other. You might have half of one, then you will have half of the other. You can't do it half-baked. So, case in point, Mindanao. Let's go back to the example of Mindanao. After the fighting stopped in Mindanao, there were so many prospects for development that happened in Mindanao in terms of infrastructure, in terms of economic growth, in terms of jobs and livelihood for our people. That is the same concept that is being applied in other areas where peace and order was a challenge before, but now that nagkaroon ng peace zones in those areas, then we are now pouring in the development part. And that changes the lives of people there, particularly in the countryside. Those areas have been, for the longest time, been impoverished because of the lack of peace and security. But the formula is very sound. If you have peace and security in areas that used to be areas of conflict, immediately after you secure peace there in those areas, the development will follow very, very fast. That is the formula that we hope to be able to continue And obviously, this is something that the President believes in. And I think when he decides on who candidate, let's say, that he would personally endorse, I think that is a very big factor in his selection process. Even if you ask local government units, local leaders, and you've heard their testimony, they would always go back to that example, that we must continue on this road to peace and security because it is just now that they have felt change happening in their localities. And when I say change, it does not only mean katahimikan, no? It doesn't only mean the stopping of the fighting that used to happen in those areas, but immediately after fighting stopped, then development came very, very fast. No? So I think that's the message, really, when you talk about the continuity of what the Duterte administration has given in terms of security, justice, and peace.
Thank you, Kabsec. Royce?
Thank you very much. Yun lang po.
From Roy Shiroma of Filipina Shimbun in Tokyo, Japan. That was the last question that we have time for. Secretary Nograles, do you have any closing remarks before ending this virtual presser?
Well, una sa lahat, we'd like to profusely thank and congratulate the Security, Justice, and Peace Cabinet Cluster for everything that they have done and continue to do. It's been 5 years on this road to peace, security, and justice. This is their last pre-SONA. But that does not mean that the work stops. In fact, dahil nga po, we only have about 11 more months to go before the end of term of the President, kailangan mas doblehin pa at mas bilisan pa natin ang nalalabing mga kailangan gawin ng Security, Justice, and Peace Cabinet Cluster. At kito niya naman na kahit na may kinakaharap tayong pandemya at nakatutok po ang lahat doon sa ating COVID response and vaccination rollout, ay nagpatuloy pa rin po ang trabaho ng iba't ibang clusters natin at kasama dyan yung SJPCC. So mabuhay to the Security, Justice, and Peace Cluster. We will continue to roll out all the programs, activities, and projects under this cluster. And we challenge the next administration na kung ano man ang nasimulan at pinagpatuloy ng cluster na ito ay sana sa susunod na administrasyon, kung sino man yung uupo at sino man yung magiging bagong principals ng Security, Justice, and Peace Cluster ay sana ipagpatuloy, i-enhance pa nila ang lahat ng ating mga efforts and objectives at na gusto nating mapagtagumpayan, no, para sa kapayapaan, tunay na kapayapaan at pagbabago ng ating bansa.
Thank you, Kabsec Nograles. Thank you, Secretary Lorenzana, Secretary Anyo, Secretary Galvez, Secretary Hermogenes Esperon, Secretary Capuyan, and to all our guests and to all of the journalists for participating in the Pre-SONA virtual presser. We would like also to thank the PCOO, Office of the Special Projects, News and Information Bureau, and RTVM. We will provide a transcript as soon as it is available. If you haven't already RSVP'd, please send an email to pcoo@pco.gov.ph. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for more updates about the Duterte administration and PCOO. Thank you for your participation. See you again tomorrow, July 22, 9 a.m. for the Pre-SONA Forum featuring the Climate Change, Adaptation, Mitigation, and Disaster Risk Reduction Cluster, to be followed by a virtual presser at 11 a.m. Muli, maraming salamat. Mabuhay po ang lahing Pilipino.